in regards to Africa, and also what they're doing in the region, especially in Burkina Faso. And with that, we have Mr. Antonio Salot Pons, the Deputy Country Director of WFP Burkina Faso, who will be able to give us a little bit of a snippet of how effective some of the tools, the processes, and the methodologies that are happening in the continent are taking ground and yielding positive results. But in addition to that, we are going to have a small presentation on what GGGI is doing in Burkina Faso, an amazing project that is beginning to yield results. And is it something we should replicate? Now, that will be a decision that all of you will be able to make. Then moving forward, we have a panel session. And in this panel session, we are going to be tackling questions from policies, processes, methodology, tools, frameworks. What works, what doesn't work, what could work better, and what can we do to move things faster and much more sustainable. And for that, we have examples from Ethiopia, from our Country Director of Ethiopia, Daniel. He's going to introduce himself for those who do not know him yet. Then we're going to move to Mercy Corps, working really with the communities. What are they doing? Why is what they're doing very effective? And for that, we have Mustafa Sowo, and he will be representing some of the incredible work that's being done for Mercy Corps, and he's going to introduce himself further. And then we have Heloise. Heloise is, of course, not new to a lot of you. She is an expert in this field and has been working a lot with the Peace Nexus and with GGGI on how do you support institutions, embed conflict and fragility within their operational models so that they can be able to operate effectively, efficiently in fragile contexts. And she will be giving excellent examples from the Peace Nexus Foundation. And we also have with us Adnan, who is also from GGGI, and he will be tackling the whole issue from a very different perspective, which is how do you bring in monitoring and evaluation? Because for sustainable solutions, you actually need evidence-based data, and Adnan will be bringing that together. So with that, without further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Antonio Salot Pons, Deputy Country Director of WFP, give us a short snippet of what happens on the ground. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Nangnum Makone. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce your name correctly. I apologize for that. Okay, I have put my contact details in the chat in case someone wants to contact me afterwards regarding this topic and the situation in Burkina Faso. We are always open to new ideas, so please feel free to do it. At the same time, I would be very grateful if some of you or you would like to put your name in your organization so I can also learn who's been in this fantastic and interesting webinar. For WFP, it's a real pleasure to join this important session on fragility, conflict, and green growth, social inclusion in Africa. As we face the growing challenges of conflict, environmental degradation, and climate change, fragile contexts are particularly vulnerable, especially due to instability and food insecurity. WFP extensive experience in fragile settings, including Burkina Faso, has provided valuable insights into strategies that work. Our approach emphasizes resilience building and empowering local actors for sustainable recovery and development. Green growth offers transformative potential in fragile environments, especially when it is inclusive and context sensitive. WFP programs aim to address immediate humanitarian needs while promoting long-term sustainability through climate-smart practices and capacity building. I will now share key lessons and challenges from our work in these complex environments. In fragile contexts, understanding the local dynamics is crucial for the success of any capacity building efforts. In Burkina Faso, we have learned that one-size solution model, it does not work in fragile settings. and this is due to the complex sociopolitical environmental factors. It is very relevant to know that WFP integrates detailed conflict analysis and fragility assessments when it's doing program planning. And this has been especially evident in regions within Burkina Faso like Sahel, where fragile environments and conflicts require tailored interventions. WFP integrated resilience programs like the one in this country, Burkina Faso, integrate both immediate food assistance and long-term resilience building efforts, contributing to climate adaptation and community stabilization. One key element for us is to make sure that we build up a local ownership and capacity. The most successful capacity development efforts in fragile contexts stem from community-led initiatives. It is very clear for WFP that we need to prioritize local ownership, building up the capacity of national and local governments, but also NGOs and community-based organizations to manage programs in an independently and in a sustainable manner. The main goal of WFP is one day to leave those areas when the capacity is strong and sustainable. Obviously, we do it through what we call FAA programs, the Food Assistance for Access Program, which is a combination of community-driven development, food assistance and community-driven development. WFP, in this case, partners with local government to rehabilitate critical infrastructure, for example, irrigation systems or reforestation projects. The program is prioritized and based on participatory watershed planning, triggering a variety of land rehabilitation activities, linking them to, for example, school meals, nutrition programs, and support to smallholder farmers to access markets. It is very clear that we need the local involvement. We have already tried other ways and we have failed without the local involvement. Imposing external solutions without considering local dynamics often leads to unsustainable outcomes and lack of engagement. Localization for WFP is a key strategic word. It is true that WFP double mandate includes the response to immediate needs with long-term capacity building. And that makes WFP a very special agency within United Nations. Because we need, in fragile contexts, we need to combine both things. We need to do the assessments for food security, and we need to create the planning for long-term development goals through capacity building. And both aspects, the emergency and the development, they have to be very well balanced. The key is to know when you have to transition from humanitarian assistance to development. And this is what we have been trying in WFP over the last 25 years. Probably a good example on this type of transition is how we have managed school feeding programs, where we are not only tackling hunger, but we are also contributing to local capacity, incorporating nutrition education, local agricultural support, and promoting sustainability. School meals program in Burkina Faso, like in other countries, is very well integrated in national policies with other services that are provided from other NGOs and UN agencies. This creates a kind of expanding service, making sure that in fragile contexts, the school become, in a way, a safe haven for children and families. This is an aspect that we normally work on. But schools are not only the place where we try to work, because in our targeting, we try to really target the most vulnerable and marginalized group. Let's think about women, displacement, and smallholder farmers. And the way we try to work with these groups into the resilience programs, ensuring equitable participation. It is clear that through gender-sensitive programming, WFP has empowered women in fragile settings, particularly in conflict-affected regions in Burkina Faso, where women play a pivotal role in food production and community resilience. In the fragile regions in Burkina Faso, these gender-sensitive program initiatives have trained women in climate-smart agricultural practices, contributing to both food security, and economic empowerment. And we have the capacity of doing this because we have developed the localization aspect of our work with cooperating partners. Let me talk a little bit more about climate resilience and fragility. Climate change exacerbates fragility, making resilience to climate shocks a key priority for WFP. In response, WFP integrates climate adaptation into capacity building efforts. WFP's climate and resilience program include adaptation and mitigation to climate change and disaster preparedness and risk reductions to strengthen resilience of livelihoods and food systems to climate shocks. Climate change mitigation, WFP asset creation and livelihood programs help to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by restoring soils and ecosystems, supporting sustainable agriculture, and using resource-efficient value chains. For example, between 2021 and 2023, over 34,000 hectares of degraded land were reclaimed and will contribute to sequester around 50 metric tons of carbon annually, contributing to Burkina Faso's national determined contribution goals. And obviously, this is in line with UN Greening the Blue initiative. WFP is identifying solutions to enhance environmental sustainability across its supply chain and reducing its carbon footprint through energy efficient and circular economic principles. Adaptation. WFP asset creation and livelihoods program focus on practical, locally led adaptation efforts, restoring ecosystems and promoting climate resilience farming practices. For example, in 2023, WFP rehabilitated 12,000 hectares of degraded land and built 79 water reservoirs for irrigation, directly enhancing agricultural productivity here in Burkina Faso. Just to give you one testimony, one community member from Plateau Central region in Burkina Faso highlighted how the water retention system had allowed them to provide for their animals water and had increased also crop production with compost from the animals enriching their fields. That is very clear that land restoration techniques like half moons have helped families grow to last through the lean season, with some even managing to sell surpluses in the local markets. If we are able to do this type of projects, there is a clear impact on the well-being of these persons. It is also clear when we talk about disaster preparedness and risk reduction that reducing humanitarian needs in the area of increasingly frequent climate disasters and fragile contexts require a combination of long-term adaptation efforts and short-term interventions in disaster preparedness, risk reduction, and protection. WFP Burkina Faso strengthens the community and national emergency preparedness, improves access to weather information, and supports disaster risk financing for smallholder farmers. For example, in Burkina Faso, in 2023, the ARC Replica Initiative provided $7.2 million to assist 135,000 beneficiaries, and in 2024, 2.6 million that supported also over 37,000 people. Additionally, 5,500 households subscribed to microinsurance in the period for 2023-2024, and 50% of which were women-headed households, and 3,600 received payouts after droughts. It is very clear that WFP is committed to a large variety of solutions, and this is our aim. In order to ensure that we provide climate data to different communities. In the case of Burkina Faso, in one single region called Boucle de Mouhon, we were able to ensure climate data to farmers in 16 communities. But not only that, we also went into the Burkina Faso National Meteorological Agency and increased the capacity to make sure that they were able to purchase, for example, automatic rain gauge and do some satellite infrastructure. For us, it's very clear that by incorporating climate-smart agricultural practices into capacity building programs, it really helps building the resilience in these fragile contexts. And this commitment of WFP is a multi-year commitment. We will continue doing it for the coming years until local solutions have been established and are sustainable. A few lessons learned. Working in fragile contexts comes with significant challenges, including insecurity, weak governance, and lack of institutional capacity. WFP has learned that flexibility, adaptability, and continuous engagement are essential to succeed. In Burkina Faso, insecurity often disrupts program implementation. However, WFP's adaptive program allows for rapid changes in response to evolving situations. Flexibility in program design and implementation, as well as continuous capacity building with local actors, even during crisis, helps to lay the foundation for long-term recovery. Fragility doesn't mean the lack of public administration and structures. What it means is that they are living in a difficult situation. In WFP, what it tries is to reinforce the services that they are.
Ms. Antonio, sorry. Just if we could wrap up to give time for the panel session. Thank you.
I can continue for a little bit more, but I think I have given you the key messages. So for me, I would like to thank you, and we can continue with the meeting and event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Antonio. So just in the in interest of time, we are going to perhaps move to the next session. But before we do that, because it entails a PowerPoint presentation from the Burkina Faso country team, I want to just take this moment to thank you once again, Mr. Antonio, for showcasing what WFP is doing, and of course emphasizing the importance of locally led solutions, because indeed locally led solutions are usually anticipatory, but they anticipate what could be coming, but they're also participatory in the sense that they accommodate all the communities involved in holding the government. And I think that this is really key to sustainable solutions. So moving on to the next presentation, perhaps on the next slide, we have a presentation from Burkina Faso that will be undertaken by Dieudonné. Dieudonné, unfortunately, we have to give you 7 minutes. Let us know if you can be able to maybe just capture the key points of the Kayadori project. Over to you. Okay, in the interest of time, because we only have 1 hour for this session, perhaps we shall keep the presentation for another time. But for now, we shall move on to the panel session. If we could please have the panel session. So for this panel session, again, here we want to focus on solutions. We want to focus on what is being done. We all know the issues at hand, and we do not want to reiterate the issues that have already been raised on the interface between climate change and fragility, and how that actually contributes also to weak governance. So this part of the session focuses on what can we do and what are we doing. So to briefly just introduce you to our speakers who are going to introduce themselves before their first question is we have Mr. Daniel, as you all know him, if you're from GGGI, but if you do not know him, he is the Ethiopia country representative at GGGI. We also have Mr. Mustafa Suwu, who is the Energy Access Advisor for Mercy Corps, focusing mostly in West Africa and Sahel region. And then we have Heloise Heyer, who is from Peace Nexus, and she is the conflict sensitivity lead, as well as Adnan Alam, who is the GGGI Africa Regional Male Officer. And for this session, I will be moderating this session. So Daniel, just very, very briefly, and immediately after introduce yourself, is that we all know that Ethiopia finding itself as the Horn of Africa positions itself in, geographically in a place whereby there are at least some conflicts in that region, and whether it is directly, Ethiopia faces a two-pronged approach. Sometimes it is directly, sometimes it's also like acting as a buffer country. So taking that into account and focusing on the role of GGGI, working directly with the government of Ethiopia, what programmatic solutions is GGGI providing the government of Rwanda to mitigate challenges, especially at the border region, but having a particular focus on green growth and economic sustainability? Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Naoma. I will not go into detailed introduction. Maybe they could share my short bio, and then we can exchange contacts. So yes, Ethiopia is in a location that is, I would say, hotspots of different conflicts and fragility. And for our work, we have come to this knowledge and decided to mainstream conflict sensitivity into our programs, especially in projects that we are working on the ground at the grassroots, where there could be potential conflicts or even ongoing conflict. As an organization that is focused on green growth, our aim is to make sure that we support our government partners to transition to a low carbon resilient green economy. And that will mean that their growth needs to be sustainable. And when there are issues of conflicts or fragility, this objective or mission or vision is undermined. So what we do on the ground in locations that needs strengthening, for example, social cohesion or capacities for peace, using our projects as an entry point, we are doing several things, and some of them are already yielding some results. For example, our project builds within its planning, but also implementation, the opportunity to build trust and effective communication amongst our stakeholders. And this is done through our engagement using the different tools, but also our direct contact with the communities. We also work with government to ensure that they diversify the areas where they invest. And what this means is that, for example, when we want to select a project site, we don't just do an academic analysis or an academic work. Rather, we do a thorough analysis to understand some, for example, perceived inequalities or opportunities that could lead government investment to be a driver of conflict. Thus, when we support government, we do encourage them to ensure that these analyses and the results from these selection criteria are put into place. And the whole idea is to increase the diversity of their investments in areas where projects and programs may help to decrease the drivers of conflict in their development work. Another thing that we do is to support the creation of grievance response mechanisms, for communities who are being negatively impacted by the project. How do we do this? These are some of the lessons we've learned, that when we do projects that are, providing tangible results on the ground, delivering quality results, it creates the opportunity, for us to support the communities or the beneficiaries to deal with a wide range of concerns, including even the direct one that the project could cause. For example, the exacerbation of conflicts due to the incompatible adaptive pathways that may exist in how projects were designed or even implemented could force people to move from their homes or from their locations, which results to different types of conflict. This could also be due to climate impacts or weather variability. So we do look at these situations when we not only design our projects, but especially during implementation, to make sure that the challenges, both at the regional or even at the subnational level, is taken care of. And a lot of this have to do with governance or the sovereignty of a state. So all the examples that I've given to you are evolving as we speak, and each project is interesting that the results that we are given, that I'm giving, are very contextual to each location that we work, because Ethiopia, as most of you may know, is a huge country. And some of these initial lessons are things that we are documenting and will be disseminating and sharing, but it shows that addressing these challenges requires a multifaceted approach that combines both local, regional, as well as international efforts when it comes to mainstreaming conflict sensitivity in fragile location or conflict-prone areas. I will stop here for now.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for that. I think one of the things you have done and you have actually mentioned, and that is also pulling in from the previous discussion we have over Kenya, is that locally led solutions are critical. Communicating with the government, but also with the local communities, is critical, because it's not only anticipatory, but it's also participatory. Another thing that you have mentioned is that solutions are always evolving. And I think this is really key, because there's not one fit solution that fits at one point in time. It is always finding those innovative tools. And it's so exciting to see that the Ethiopia Country Office is actually leading in this direction. So thank you very much, Daniel, for sharing these key lessons with us. And I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of lessons to capture. And I think as the conversation goes, we will be able to even gather more ideas on what is being done. And I think moving forward from what GGGI is doing, an excellent example shown by, explained by Daniel, is not to try and move into the other sector, which is Mercy Corps, followed by to be further elaborated by Mustafa Suru in regards to particularly on communication and particularly on digital media and how communication plays a key role in ensuring that every solution, every activity that is done to curb the issues of fragility leading to weak governance systems is kind of tackled at the bottom up. Over to you, Mustafa.
Okay, thank you, Naoma, and thank you, everyone. It is a pleasure for me to, be part of this discussion today. For the sake of the time, I will not introduce myself. Naoma have my bios, and it can be shared with, you all. To start. We all know that, this issue of conflict and climate change, it has been already, highlighted by other speakers. And we all know that this issue is, deeply intertwined challenges. And these requests require innovative solutions and even collaborative approaches. So digital tools or communication technology, broadly speaking, play a critical role in addressing those issues. So I'm going to take you through some of, the Mexico experiences in, the various countries across the region, West Africa and East Africa. But as an organization, we have, built strategies and approaches. Mexico has strategically integrated digital, technologies into a conflict resolution and climate change adaptation efforts. And we have this approach named Technology for Development, T4D, and the team partner with, field teams and external stakeholders to, unlock new possibilities, extending their reach and impact through technology. And Mexico, as an organization, envisioned a world of digital inclusion and opportunity where ethical use of, those technologies foster secure, productive, and equitable communities. We've, implemented, interesting projects across Sahel region where digital tools of communication technology plays, crucial role in enhancing information flow and awareness, promoting transparency and accountability. We have a mechanism, a feedback mechanism called CAM, which, leverage on, digital tools and communication technologies to make sure our intervention in fragile contexts with communities receive, feedback from the very community we are supporting. And let me quickly take you through some, specific case studies. I will start with, a project we've implemented in Mali and Burkina Faso, RECLIS project, Resilience Climatique et Stabilité, funded by Patriot Foundation. And this, project address the interconnected issue of conflict and climate change along the Mali and Burkina Faso border. And again, this project has, leverage on digital tools to, promote, let's say, to reach community engagement through information dissemination and feedback mechanism. It comes again, and also early warning systems. which is, something critical. We've also, experienced something interesting in capacity building training, designing a digital literacy program where we've delivered training session focused on improving digital literacy among community members, especially women and youth, empowering those groups with technology skills so that they can better access information, connect with the broader networks, and engage in digital advocacy. Also, those tools as enable us to to experience an online conflict resolution training, utilizing a digital platform for training community leaders and stakeholders in conflict resolution and in negotiation skill that can enhance so that their capacity can be enhanced to address dispute peacefully. There is another case study in Eastern Congo. We've implemented a project. The project is actually ongoing. The Partnership for the Development of Eastern Congo, funded by PDEC, funded by USAID, and the project is implemented mainly in Goma region. And again, communication technologies play a critical role in community mobilization and dialogues, in controlling misinformation. In this part of Africa, most of the time rumors and misinformation fuel the conflict because we have an ongoing conflict there. And we leverage on the existing tool to use. And as an example, we have this so-called PCPT, which is Community Perception Tracker. And this, tool has, leverage on the digital platform to, improve the community perceptions and grievances and how we can, respond to, some of the issues raised by community leaders. And also, we've, trained youth and influencers on how to use digital tools in order to play a key role in promoting peace and fostering social cohesion among community members. We have a group called Groupe de Plaidoyer pour la Paix à Masisi, GPPM. We've leveraged on innovative digital tools in order to improve the performance and the efficiency of this existing mechanism, which is a kind of platform composed of key elected community leaders that are elevating community voice from to a provincial level to a national level in order to reach to Benin and Ituri, where the conflict is ongoing. Now, another project is, the last but not the least, is Justice and Stability in Sahel, JAS, funded by FCDO. FCDO, the government of UK, have a strategy for Sahel region. And the project aligned with this strategy in order to improve security and stability. And again, digital tools, communication technologies play a critical role in community mobilization and dialogue, and in social media campaign to promote peace. And one thing to highlight there is that the use of digital tool has enabled us to counter stigmatizing messaging that can damage relationship between farming and herding communities by developing a positive communication strategy in close collaboration with local communities, and also by collecting stories, creating short video clips and contents that can be shared on social media in order to promote cohesion among herding and farming communities. And also an example is coming in my mind.
Mr. Sobu, I'm sorry, maybe we may have to wrap up so that we can
Okay.
have more panelists, but please, if you can be able to wrap up, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just want to, touch on, an RRA program in Nigeria, rural resilience activities implemented in the northeast and northeast and northwest part of the country, where we've, partner with Solar Sisters, which is a non-profit organization operating in Kenya, Tanzania, in order to, help them. We supported this organization to, set a kind of, last mile distribution network, leveraging on, a digital tool to reach out to, a community that are, displaced by flood and also the ongoing conflict in Borno State, mainly. Thank you. I'll hand over to you and expecting your questions. Thank you. Question section.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. And I'm just quickly going to show the connection, connect the dots between what we've had from Antonio talking about locally led solutions and Daniel saying that locally led solution should also be fit for purpose. They should be made for each community, and that we should be flexible with our innovative tools. And now we are hearing about the importance of communication and digital tools in order to support solutions for reducing at least aspects of conflict, but also more importantly, using digital media in a conscious manner, more on helping and contributing to rather than misinformation. So I want to thank you so much for that, Mustafa Sulu, and also for what Mercy Corps is doing. So now we're going to move to donors such as Peace Nexus. Having heard all these Heloise, what is the role that you can give of donors such as Peace Nexus in supporting not only countries but also institutions in coming up with innovative tools to curb the issues of conflict and fragility, especially in the context of Africa, but also at the level of operationalization. So over to you, Heloise.
Thanks so much, Nagnuma. And maybe I should say first a few words about the Peace Nexus Foundation. We are a small-scale donor, but we are exchanging with much larger scale donors. The choice that has been made by our foundation is to invest in everything that belongs to the internal efforts of organizations to tackle these issues. I think we've heard a lot and very clearly about the interconnections, and I think it's wonderful to have a session like this where you have GGGI, WFP, Mercy Corps giving their perspectives on the topic, because as issues are increasingly connected, they require actors to change how they are working internally and also how they are working with each other. And I think on this working with each other and crossing perspectives, this is something that we've already heard in the session today, and it's really informative. On what it takes from the internally within the organizations, there's a lot of strategy and intent and effort and time that's required to build these innovative solutions, to adapt to the context, to understand the dynamics, to support and enable locally led solutions. It's a lot of work. And the whole system is not necessarily geared towards supporting that. So our foundation is investing in that. It's not a lot of money, but it's long-term support accompaniment. I should say that we started first by supporting humanitarian and development organizations, but we noticed over the past years that organizations in the environment and climate space in particular were facing more and more of these conflict challenges, but they are not getting at the moment this dedicated support to tackle these issues, and especially on the internal institutional capacity building. So we've increased our portfolio of partners in this area, including with GGGI. And I'll say a bit more about that, but first I just wanted to share something. I was just at the Berlin Climate Security Forum last week, and there was a fantastic session that showed to me and to the whole audience there in Berlin about the leadership role that I think Africa is taking at the moment on the climate peace and security agenda in particular. There were representatives from the African Union explaining the whole process of working towards a common position on climate peace and security. And this was an exchange with representatives from the European Union. It was really interesting to see the dynamic of the AU explaining how they were working towards this common position with 55 member states, and basically the EU saying, well, with 27, surely we should try and catch up. So it was really, really interesting to see and hear. And I think in Africa, there's, in different countries and contexts, a very clear and direct and visible connection of these issues, which is partly why actors there, I think, at the moment, are more advanced than in some other regions on this particular topic. But then in practice, there's often a bit of a gap between the big policy directions and the practice side. I think today in this session, we had a lot of very practical examples, so that's really useful, but many actors are not there at the moment. And one thing I should say is that in the climate and green growth space, we feel from our perspective that GGGI is really pioneering new things. And things that we've heard, for instance, from Daniel from GGI Ethiopia, it's going very deep into a kind of thinking that I believe at the moment is not full mainstream in the climate space. And this is the kind of innovative, grounded solutions and strategic thinking that deserve to be heard and replicated by other institutions. We haven't heard the particular example from Burkina Faso, but GGI in Burkina Faso has also been very strategic and grounded in trying to see how to embed this conflict and local approaches within green growth action and within the engagement with the government. So we are learning a lot from this, and we think others should hear about that, including funders. And another thing we're trying to do as a foundation is to try to have an exchange with other funders on how they can adapt their funding modalities for this context and enable these flexible adaptive approaches and really incentivize these new types of collaborations between actors. So I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Eloise. I think one thing you've captured is that we need to have adaptive approaches and that donors do have a key role to play, and that a lot of innovative solutions are currently being undertaken, but they're not yet mainstreamed. I really want to thank you for that, and also for bringing in what GGGI is doing. So thank you, Eloise, and thank you, Peace Nexus. Now, I want to move forward into how does all that fall in data? And how important is this, especially Adnan, when you're talking about conflict and fragility, to be able to ensure that whatever information we have, whatever innovative tools that we're using, they have to be evidence-based. I see that we're running out of time. We're just going to ask for 5 more minutes extra time, if that's okay, to the colleagues hosting the Zoom, so that we can conclude with the words of Dr. Mali. For now, we're just going to give Adnan 5 minutes to just give us a snapshot on how important all this and how it all ties down with monitoring and evaluation in fragile context. Over to you, Adnan.
Thank you, Nanuma, for the questions concerning M&E in fragile, conflict-affected, and violent context, which is also called shortly FCV. I think my fellow panelists have already delved deeply into the evidence linking peace, conflict, and climate resilience or green growth. Just to add, there was an assessment done by the Goldman School of Public Policy, University of California, that considered 50 rigorous quantitative studies on this question and found consistent support for a causal association between climatological changes and the various conflict outcomes, which means that it's important for us to understand the different challenges and opportunities regarding this CFV context. Well, the CFV context or the challenges are significant and multifaceted, but just for better understanding, we can mainly organize or categorize them into 4 major dimensions. So these are the logistical, the ethical, the methodological, and the political. While I'll not go into specific details of each, but you know, and we all know that for example, when it comes to the monitoring and evaluation, when it comes to the data, the access to the remote and conflict affected areas is often severe. I mean, this is always limited by political and security restrictions, sometimes poor infrastructure, sometimes, hazardous conditions that all that all leads to the delays. And of course, sometimes restricting the scope of the monitoring and evaluation. Similarly, if we talk about, the data collection, it's always kind of seen as that the data, which is basically it's biased due to political influences, security concerns, social dynamics. And I usually give an example to colleagues usually that when we say, just to give one example, number of people displaced due to conflict, 10 and 100 makes a lot of difference. It's not something like any other thing. For example, let's say adoption of anything or others. So basically, this is really important that usually the data in the FCV context is often biased. Then, of course, there's a fair, we already talked about the local communities. There's a factor that also basically, or there's a constraint that is related to the fear and lack of trust among local communities that further complicates the M&E process. Then, of course, the scarcity of financial, technological, and human resources. Again, it limits the ability to conduct a comprehensive assessment. Another major challenge that basically research and evidence suggest is the gap in the skill set gap. There are often there's a lack of people who had these skills, especially when it comes to the monitoring and evaluation of in the FCV context. So there are a lot of issues and challenges, but in the interest of time, like I said, these are majorly 4, which are logistical, ethical, methodological, and political. Now, what can be, basically, what are the opportunities? I think just to quickly say, the first and foremost important would be to have organization to have FCV specific M&E guidance tools and frameworks to integrate conflict awareness and conflict sensitivity into projects and particular programs, particularly in conflict affected countries. I think at GGGI, we have made a lot of efforts, but I think this is really an important. Second, as we already discussed and this is already discussed by other panelists, innovative approaches to CFV sensitive M&E. And just to give one example, was an evaluation, there's a case study done in Afghanistan, Helmand province, where they developed a GIS product and GIS mapping, which enabled user to visualize geographically the linkages and correlation between variables and illustration in an accessible, user-friendly fashion, and to understand how mutually dependent the different standards of reconstruction, stabilization, and capacity building efforts can be. For instance, they were able to identify the reason of the security incident and the presence of school and hospitals. So, we have to think about the innovative approaches also when it comes to the monitoring and evaluation. The third most important, I think, consideration would be building the capacity of the teams. Teams implementing projects need to have sufficient human resource to tackle and understand basically how their activities are interacting with the most important conflict dynamics, and to be able to respond and correct course it if needed. I think the next,
Sorry, we're running out of time. Thank you.
So I think overall, what I will just conclude with this key important message is that it's important to mention that in FCV context, M&E practices must be carefully adopted to manage the complexities and uncertainties of these environments while maintaining ethical standards and promoting positive outcomes. Thank you, and over to you, Nanuma.
Thank you very much. Oh my God, so many things to say and to do, and so I mean, a lot of innovation out there. And I wish this session was 2 hours because there's so much more that all of the panelists wanted to share. But 1 hour is not sufficient, so we need to do this again. That basically means we'll have to pose the questions for another session, and we shall definitely be bringing all of them back together again to share much more details of what's happening. But for now, just the intersectionality between what all the panelists have been mentioning, communication is key. Innovation is necessary. A collection of data has to be ethically made in order to ensure that the data collected is non-biased. We have to be able to track, because quality, what you cannot count, you cannot advise. Basically, evaluation is important, data collection is important, and making solutions fit for purpose and are locally made. So that's almost all from us here. We have 2 minutes to give Dr. Male for the closing, and then we will all be wishing you a nice day. Over to you, Dr. Male, for your closing session.
Thank you very much, Naima, and also I would like to take the opportunity to thank all the panelists. Also, thank you, Peace Nexus, WFP, but also Mercy Corp, and our colleagues as well that give some example. And I think we all today for one important topics, and we're not dealing with easy problems or easy challenges, right? And I think this is a complex one. And the different intervention shows that this complex problem need an integrated solution to be solved. And that integrated solution to be solved required to involve the end beneficiary, to understand the needs, but also what is required to helping them to move toward a green growth journey. Conflicts require that inclusivity, but also having one particular aiming, just building a solution that will long last there. And which means that you have to look at the whole value chain from the policy side, looking the data side, the regulation, the investment, but the social cohesion. Which means that the work or the solution will happen and also will have the success that we expected if we all work together. That's the bottom line. And also being more innovative in certain way, because conflict exists 100 years, more than decade and centuries. But we're seeing and observing adding complex new way of strengthening this ecosystem. Climate change is happening. We have the COVID-19 also. That add most of the complexity as well. So what I would say, and I was really pleased to hear a lot of solution coming from the different panelists, is that continue sitting together, continue to collaborate, continue to be more innovative in thinking outside the box would be really helping us come up with a long-lasting solution. And such platform would be the good way to share the solution and help to also reducing the learning curve. So with that, I would like to say thank you for everyone, those who join online and also in person. And I wish you that we will have the opportunity to continue that conversation and trying to just really save life and save people through our innovative solution that will long last for the particular aspect. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
WFP,
Thank you.
DGI colleagues, Peace
you. Bye.
Nexus, and of course, Mercy Corps. We have to do this again. This was great. Too short. I will be reaching out for space 2. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.